that they understand, but not really thinking about us money people and how we quantify. So sometimes site instructions will need quite a bit of work and explaining and maybe backup. You know, a lot of the time we would support a site instruction with photos, measured up drawings, that sort of thing. Give them as much information as you can. So you would, to make their life easier. You know, the easier you make their life, the easier you're going to make your life. Also, you need feedback on extension of time claims, or very rarely maybe an acceleration claim, which is a swear word in the PQS industry. But yeah, so just feedback on you know, you get your P&G, which is pretty straightforward. You know, you submit a P&G at tender stage, and you have a P&G spread, and that's where your monthly items that you'll claim. And your bill of quants is pretty straightforward. You know, you might have a few measure issues, but the rates are the rates. You know, you pretty much fix to those unless circumstances change drastically. So it's really just feedback on the abnormal things like site instructions, extension times, accelerations, and that. Then measurement feedback. If there's a big difference in quantities, you know, we always feel that it's better to sort it out as it's going along than to let the variances get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then at the end you sit with a huge variance and a big fight. So if there's a measurement difference, sort it out as soon as you can. And then also the PQS is responsible for selected subcontract measures. So, and a lot of the time you might have a consultant, especially with the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, electronics, lifts, each other. What we would call the specialist selectors. Usually you would have a consultant that would measure that package because they understand it, that's their business, that they do. And then you get packages which the PQS would handle, which like aluminium windows, which other ones? Structural steelwork, that sort of thing, where it would be an amount in your provisional amount in your bill of quantities. A selected subcontractor would get appointed, and then the PQS would certify the amount of work done. So it's a little bit easier for you as a contractor's QS, because you do check the measures to make sure it's not, you know, because you are responsible if there's a big overpayment. But you aren't responsible for the nitty-gritty measure, which is quite nice. You know, you're really more just a middleman. PQS certifies that, you pay that. And it's an in and out. So that's quite a nice aspect. But other than that, that's all really that you'd expect from PQS. You know, it's the valuation, it's a certificate, feedback on SIs, measurement feedback, and selected subcontract packages. Other than that, to me, yeah, not too much. Lastly, interesting experiences that you have encountered with regards to cost management and cost control during construction. None. I thought long and hard about this, and yeah, cost management and let me say cost control. For us, it's almost like running into a brick wall, because you've got a site team that sort of wants and needs certain resources, and sometimes those resources don't quite tie up to what your allowable is. And probably the biggest fight that you'll have in terms of cost control is labor. You know, and it's almost like a forever ongoing feud between the contractor's QS and the site team. Because the site team will take as much labor as they want. They don't care. You know, they really, the more the better. You know, if every single foreman could have 8 laborers following him around, picking up things, polishing his shoes, washing his car, they would do that. You know, they love labor. So one of the biggest things is really reporting on that as a QS and saying, guys, you've got too many people. What are they doing? Why are they here? Do we need them? And sort of just guiding them, because they're not especially the middle to low down management, they're not au fait with costs. They don't understand really costs. They're there to do a job. They're there to build the building. It's your job as a contractor QS to make sure it's done in budget. And it's a fine line between almost telling them how to do their job, to say, no, you cannot have 10 labourers, you will get 2, because that's what our law is, and then giving them the resources that they need to do the job. Because also you don't want to give them too little resources, they don't do the job on time, and then we get into penalties, and then everyone loses, and the client gets upset because he gets his building late. So it's a fine line, and quite a difficult one. I'll give you an example. At the end of one of our big jobs in town, we came to a stage where we had sort of 110 labourers of our own, and we weren't doing any work. We had a brickwork subcontractor doing all the brickwork. We had a plaster subcontractor doing all the plastering. We had every single subcontractor doing all of the other ceilings, partitions, lights, all of that. Yet the only work we really do is concrete. So the concrete was finished, the building was standing, the concrete had been finished 4 months ago, yet we had 110 labourers on site. And we don't really have an allowable for it. And it's really sitting down with the guy and saying, guys, okay, you've got 10 labourers. These are their names. Either you sign for it, what are they doing? And how are we going to get recovery for this? And it's sort of trying to show them that we shouldn't be having these guys on site because it's cost us money and it's actually making us lose money. So it's not the funnest part, but it's a necessity. Some other examples of cost control and stuff is an important aspect is to compare the cost of an item versus the impact it will have on program. So just trying to bring that simply, cheaper is not always necessarily better. So just because it looks cheaper to you on the cold face, on the numbers, doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper overall on the project. It might delay you in other aspects of the job, or you might not be able to build as fast, and then your P&G is more, and things like that. So you need to look at it at a holistic view. An example of this is at a job we're doing in the top of town, ETV's new head office, Ruben Street, the Ferrari shop there. We looked at 2 options for pumping concrete. Obviously we have a plant yard and we have our own pumps. Okay, so we can hire this pump from our plant yard. Then we would be responsible for running the pipes, the concrete pipes, from the pump. It's a big static pump, running the pipes to the deck, and then as you're pouring the deck, you break down the pipes with the labour, and then you have to clean them and pack them again, and then when you pour the next deck tomorrow, you need to build a new line and that. And we did a costing, and sort of, let's say for argument's sake, it came out at 100 Rand a cube, this option. Then we looked at, then we had the other option of getting an external subcontractor to do our pumping. And they give you a one-stop shop. You say, I want concrete there. They come in, they bring their big fancy boom pipe, and they pump the concrete right there. And if they can't reach it, they lay the extra pipe that you need, and they break it down as you go along. But this costs 120 Rand a cube. And if you're pouring sort of 20,000 cubes, it's like 400,000 Rand that you're talking about difference. So it's quite a saving that the project can get. So obviously we went with with our pump, from a commercial decision. We said internal pumping is cheaper. That's what we're going to do. We brought down the pump. We set it up, but while we were bringing it down and setting it up, we used the external subcontractor in the meantime. And So we sort of understood what service we got from them and how it worked and how easy it was. You know, it's a phone call, guys, we're pumping tomorrow, bring the truck, and that's it. Your problem solved. You don't have to have labor to build the pipes. You don't have to have labor to dismantle the pipes. If there's a blockage, it's a subcontracted problem, that sort of thing. And then we got our pump down, and we started this, and we built the pipes, and we cleaned the pipes, and all this nonsense. And after 2-3 weeks of that, we actually realized that the difficulty and the effort involved in even though on paper the per cube rate is cheaper, the hidden costs like time and just pure ease of day-to-day running, that we actually decided, right, we're going to go back to subcontract pumping because it's so much. The word is easier, so it's much easier for the site guys, and they can actually focus on other more important things, like setting up the next deck and you know, making sure other materials are here. So it's just an example of, you know, just because something on paper looks cheaper doesn't mean that it's actually cheaper or better or more beneficial to the project. Sometimes you've got to spend a bit of money in one place to save overall. Another example is, I don't know if you're all aware of the Portside project in town. At Big Building in town. We set up a batch plant on site there. And that batch plant versus ready-mix concrete. You know, obviously ready-mix concrete is every contractor's dream. You pick up the phone, I say, I want 20 cubes tomorrow. Sweet, done. Your life doesn't get more complex than that. With a batch plant, you know, you are responsible for everything. You've got to make sure you have enough materials. You've got to make sure your wastage isn't too much. Your batch plant can break down. There's so many other factors that become your responsibility. It's not just a phone call and saying, I want concrete. You know, your batch plant operator could be sick. You've got the labor that you have to manage who run the batch plant. There's a whole lot of aspects. So my point is that we set up the batch plant on that Portside project because it was about a 12 million rand cost saving per, you know, over the volume of concrete. It's much cheaper to obviously make your own concrete than to get a ready mix because he's running a business, he needs to make profit, he's got costs and all of that. So it's much cheaper to do it yourself. So, but it was a hard, it's a hard exercise. You know, you've got this whole almost mini business aspect that you need to manage. You know, it's deliveries and all the invoicing and the paying, and so it's quite a complex thing. So now we had another project that we're starting in Century City, where we had the same scenario where we priced because there's a huge amount of concrete, so we priced to set up a batch plant ourselves, and we got to a cost. Then we looked at going to an external ready-mix concrete supplier, and there was a huge difference. Again, it's about 10-12 million rand difference. So obviously we can't, you know, we would want that 12 million rand for ourselves, you know. So then we looked at saying, right, what happens if we get an external contractor to set up a batch on site and manage it for us? So it's similar to a ready-mix scenario where you phone them up and say, hi, can I have concrete? But the only difference is he's on your site, he's next door, you've given him the land for free, but you don't have to worry about anything in terms of making sure your materials are there, managing the labor, managing the waste, managing plant breakdowns, all that sort of thing. And he costed that out, and it came to maybe 2-3 million more expensive than us managing it ourselves. And purely just, you know, for peace of mind, we actually decided to say, right, we would rather lose the 3 million and go have an external subcontractor manage the batch plant, because that's what they do. They'll probably do it better than us, and you get this whole headache is gone. So sort of as a PQS or as a contractor QS, you know, you need to look at all these options and then cost it and look at the bigger picture, and also what's going to be easier for the site. You know, I would love to, if it was purely down to numbers, batch concrete on site and save the extra 3 million rand